Hey everybody, this is Perch. I want to give this topic kind of one more go because I don't think it got explained that well the last time, and there's some confusion and everything else. So I want to try it again because I think it's a really important uh, problem, and it's not with comics; it's really with anything. And it's what does success mean to people? And in this video, I said, you got to kind of care about the money in order for you to believe it can be great. But I think that's kind of a muddled message. I'm not saying, as many people pointed out, it doesn't have to be about the money. You shouldn't be doing art just for the money. No, of course not. Money it can do a lot of things. It buys you a lot of things. It's interesting, these articles, these studies coming out saying, money can buy you happiness because, we surveyed a bunch of millionaires who are living on islands right now and having a good time and going to the beach. It turns out that flying around a private jet is way better than economy class in a plane. Like, they seem happier. Rich people are happier. Well, I mean, sure. I mean, what do you expect? I just I don't know. Our articles are written by dumber and dumber people. I get suckered into it every time. Like, you hit the Apple News and there's headlines recommended for you, and it's like half the time it's like this person is clearly they're just churning out content as fast as they can in order to capture, in the hopes that 1 out of 100 captures eyeballs. That's certainly the approach that's working for comic news sites. But at any rate, what I was trying to get at was no, it's not about the money. It's about, you need to have a viewpoint that it can be big, that it being what you work on can be big and can be meaningful and can be huge. It's like, if you're a writer and you're like, I've got a story to tell, I want to go out there and I want to tell this story, somewhere, hopefully, you've had a dream, you've had a fantasy, you've had some kind of thought process where you're bigger than J.K. Rowling. Your book is everywhere. Everybody knows. They're wanting to option movies off of what you've written. It's just you become super popular. You walk into a store and people recognize you and they go, wow, man, it's you. Yay. You're such an amazing writer. Everybody knows you. Yeah, that long after you're dead, there'll be people still reading your books and be like, man, this person's amazing. They're such a genius, ahead of their time. That's kind of, hopefully that's like a fantasy that you have. Some aspect of that, not all of it. And again, I'm not saying that art is a servant to fame or to riches or any of that. I'm not saying that. But if you have no concept of what big can be, of what making it can be, it can mean that some of your efforts come off kind of shallow. I think that comics in particular has this problem where it's maybe it's an inferiority complex. It just views itself as small. Because what catches me, and what I tried to say in the other video, but I'll say again here, is that too often, I'll go and I'm having drinks with somebody, or I'm having dinner with somebody, or somebody in comics, and the conversation, and by the way, it's usually more the people on staff, the editors, the guy who's working on the website, the woman who's in marketing, who's an old friend. I mean, just these kinds of, it's usually those people more than the artists or the writers. Uh, I'll say things like, hey, do you have a lot of conversations? I'm always probing. Like, do you have a lot of conversations around, how you can disrupt this industry, how you can actually sell 1 million copies of something, or how maybe you could, get your comics into wherever it is. Usually when I'm going out to dinner or I'm talking to these people, my head's at somewhere. I've just read something or watched something or I've traveled somewhere, and I'm like, have you thought about getting comics into airports? And have you thought about putting graphic novel digests into those little shops before somebody gets on the plane? Have you, what about in the grocery store? Have you put something there? What about, in the schools? How about, it just I'm often like, how can you make it bigger? And I'll say things like, how do you get your comic? Because usually the editor or whoever it is kind of bemoaning the fact that they'd like to get more money, they'd like to have more books, they'd like to move on up, but they have to get their sales up, and their sales are currently hovering around 35,000, and how do we get this higher? And I'm like, yeah, how do we get this up to 1 million copies? And the frequent response is, whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't even, the comics will never, it's always these definitive, comics will never be selling at that rate again. Comics will never be in an airport. Well, maybe like Watchmen or so, but comics are never going to be there. In a grocery store, never. There's no way. Comics are not that big a deal. And then oftentimes they'll say things like, "No, most kids these days are interested in the Switch, or they're playing they're playing the Fortnite and the Roblox or whatever it happens to be. Kids are into other things." And the last conversation I had along these lines, because by the way, when I talk to writers and artists, and usually more artists, they're like, "Yeah, I would like $1 million. Yes." There's no, they're there. Most of them are there. The writers are, sorry, the artists especially. The writers, it varies. Um, but it's I, it's puzzling to me that the dream of even being bigger is gone. And what I realized is that a lot of people, they don't even they don't believe it's possible. And in many cases, they don't even conceive of what success looks like. They don't even know what that would even mean. It's like, hey, let me show you. I remember walking this person through a graph of what a subscription service was and why the subscription service is really great, especially for digital. If you can pull that off, why Shueisha is in good shape. It's like, no, they're not making any money because they're only making $2 a month from users. For if one a customer is paying only $2 a month. It's like, yeah, but watch what happens when you get 1,000 customers paying that. Oh, and look at this, they're paying every month. So this is how much you're getting a year. Do you see how this adds up? And the best part about this is these people are grabbing this app, they're subscribing, and so they're just continuing to pay into it. They're giving you money while you sleep. And this is how you build a big business. And I'll hear things like, well, that would never work for Western comics. Like, what would never work? Subscription. The idea that you're going to pay something and you're just going to pay a flat fee and get entertainment content like that, that would never work in the U.S. I'm like, have you heard of Netflix? Have you heard of Disney Plus? Your company who owns you has heard of Disney Plus. So it's weird. And increasingly, what I have come to suspect is that within comics, nobody has really kind of mentored or sat down or showed a lot of the people who work there, hey, this is what big time success can look like. This is what, being a baller in this industry would be like. This is what it is. And so you have a bunch of people who are kind of maintaining the status quo. They're showing up to work, they're kind of doing their job. They're like, well, I got 14 likes today on a tweet, so it's a pretty good day. I got some stuff done. I'm hoping for. I'd sure like to make enough money, so I could afford a HBO Max subscription in addition to the Netflix subscription. That's what I'd really like to do. I'd like to one day, not have to, share a house with 4 other people in order to live within 50 miles of Manhattan. I'm exaggerating, but I mean, just there's not this desire to do more, and that's why I equated it in the previous video to money. It's not about you have to go get money, but hopefully, you're working hard and you're doing things, and your goal is, I'm going to make more money, because with money will come a different level of success, and with a different level of success comes a different environment, and then this is how I can do it. Have the dream. A lot of people in comics, my observation is they don't have the dream in the first place. Their dream is weird. Like, I am hoping I can be a huge success in comics. And their definition of huge success is they have over 5,000 followers, or Donnie Cates likes their tweets. That's the success. And I think if that's your bar, if that's your view, if you grow up and you're taught, you believe that that's the way you're going to be successful, then you're gonna have a very very insulated, very shallow life. It strikes me, there's a lot of people, especially in the arts community in this other area, who like to talk globally. They want to talk about other cultures, they want to talk about what goes on in other places, but very few of them have actually traveled. Or if they've taken what's a very sheltered kind of experience. They've gone and they've stayed in a some kind of community house or hostel or something somewhere in London, and they had a great 2 weeks eating curry and watching soccer and smoking out in the alley, and it's like, oh, it's a great time, but you haven't actually traveled and lived. You haven't actually seen the environment. To do that often takes money. Not always. And again, my point here is not to say that money is a solution to everything. It is not. Money is not. You have to have inner happiness. You have to have inner creativity. You have to have inner drive. Yes, but you also, I think, need to have a view of success. You also need to have some semblance, some sense of what making it looks like, or what it could look like. Because if you can pull that off, if you can actually have a view of success, and you have something to work toward, you have some level of litmus test to say I've made it or I haven't made it, and that becomes important. I don't know. Again, I don't feel like this is kind of one of those things I need to figure out how to describe better. But it's an important factor. I think in comics is one of the things that's missing, and it's one of the areas that we get into a lot of trouble, or comics winds up being less than what it can be because people don't have a good sense of what it can be. They don't have a good sense of where it can go. It's kind of, nobody's opened their eyes up to say, hey, you know what, this could be huge, and you could be part of that hugeness. You want to be part of that. I think that would go a long way. I think that would go a long way to raising morale. I think it would go a long way to improving kind of the output and focusing on the right things. I mean, if you had a belief that editing or working on or distributing or publishing or marketing or whatever it happens to be, if you had a belief that your efforts would ultimately lead to a nice six-figure salary and a lot of fame and recognition, would you be spending all of your time effing around on Twitter? Probably not. That's just, you wouldn't be wasting that time, because to you, you'd be like, well, this is not getting me to where I want to go. I've come to the conclusion that Donnie Cates liking my tweet does not put money in my pocket or fame or success or anything else. And so, it is what it is. But what is true about comics is that because the ceiling is so low, and because in many cases people are doing very, very small things, and that is kind of the norm in comics, it means that a lot of the trivial stuff, a lot of the messing around and farting around on social media, and a lot of the kind of the silly chat stuff that goes on, the weird Facebook groups, or now Slack is the popular thing. It's a lot of creators are got their own Slack groups going. Somebody figured out that you can have a free account. It's amazing, and that's become this tiny little community. Is people are very engaged in it. You can have the initial first step of success by doing those things, because that's how you're recognized. But there's no second step. You just kind of hover there at the bottom. I don't know. I think it's good to have dreams. It's good to dream big, and that's again, maybe I'm succeeding, maybe I'm failing. You let me know in the comments below. But the point is, if you have a bigger dream, bigger than what you're accomplishing today, then it helps you imagine what the future can be. And if you have no dream, you're just kind of stuck where you are, and that doesn't seem good for anybody. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Maybe it's all a bunch of fortune cookie crap is what I just did. Hey, thanks for listening.